Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today for this session on tips for getting a job fast. I know that many of you are probably feeling a little bit of a time crunch in terms of finding a job, whether it's because your limited readjustment allowance is running out. You need a job to be able to get an apartment, live on your own versus staying in the basement of your parents or whatever the situation is. I'm here to talk to you about several tips on trying to help things you can do to help speed the job search process and actually the acquisition of a job up. So, my name is Jody Hammer, and I am the career services specialist here at the NPCA. And I work in the global reentry program. And so I put on many different webinars twice a week on career topics, in addition to the Jobs with Jody podcast, which is every Wednesday. And that has a lot of different, RPCVs, accomplished, folks to talk about their own careers and share insight and guidance. And we do a monthly first Wednesday of the month, which we just had 2 days ago. We do the Ask the Career Coach job search Q&A that I do with my fellow coaching colleague, Dr. Rhonda Anstead. So lots of opportunities for you to get involved and partake of our many offerings. And we'd love to hear from you. So um, let's go ahead and get started on this topic, and we'll go from there. I want to first talk a little bit on the complexity of the job search, because the job search is, I mean, it is quite a process, right? It is quite a complex beast, if you will. And so conquering it is really tough. And that's why there's a lot of opportunities for training, and videos and webinars on numerous aspects of the job search, right? Because it really does take a lot to put together, a good job search and follow through and do everything that's required in order to get that job. And the truth of the matter is, many times it does take a lot longer than what we wish, right? Obviously, most of you would probably want that job tomorrow, but it sometimes can definitely take time. And there are times where you get stuck in that kind of rut where you're not really hearing back from things, and then you're wondering, am I doing something wrong? And all of those kinds of things. So we're going to talk here today about what are the things that you can do to help speed up the job search process. Okay. The first thing that I want to put out there is, even if you are feeling desperate, which I get it, it's a frustrating process. Maybe you've been in it for many, many months and you're just not seeing any progress. You're not getting phone calls or callbacks, or maybe you're getting the interview and you're just not getting the job in the end. Lots of different scenarios, right? But feeling if you're feeling desperate, even if you are feeling that inside, please, please, please do not show that to the employer. Okay. And some of the ways that people express or exude desperation is being uber flexible. I'll take anything. I'm looking for any job, whatever job, wherever. That just exudes desperation. And an employer doesn't really feel the need, or they don't really want to bring on somebody who's looking for a job just because they're feeling desperate. They want to bring someone on who really is excited about this job, and this is why. And so you want to make sure that you don't come across as that desperate, even if you are getting worried and all of that. You can do some things to kind of try to keep yourself in check and not let that show to employers, right? So one of the things I just mentioned, even, right, don't, not expressing that ultimate unlimited flexibility, any job, wherever, all of that. You want to avoid doing that, right? You want to keep calm, and sometimes, there's various ways to do this, right? Whether it's, mindfulness, meditation, just cleansing breaths, just those deep, in through your nose and out through your nose or your mouth, right? Just calm that can actually calm you down quite a bit, right? And help you. I talk a lot about the super, woman or Superman pose, when I talk about going into an interview to try to boost your confidence. Right before that, just, standing up, if y'all can do that, stand up and spread your legs out, right? Put your hands on your hip, your shoulders back, your chest out, and then take a deep breath through your nose in, and then exhale and do that again. This very simple exercise has been shown to give the impression you are more confident. Even if you don't feel confident, it can help exude confidence where you are calm and collected, and that generally is what's associated with calm with confidence, right? So keeping calm and carrying on, as the saying goes, right? Just not letting that desperation show. The other thing, if you that exudes desperation, is when you are, you're so overly like flattering to people, and maybe or groveling really. I really need a job, or this person in the picture, please, please, please hire me, right? That's the kind of thing that we're talking about. So, I get it. Desperation comes when your window gets smaller. And so, what I want to acknowledge before we even go on with any of these other ideas is, if you are in a situation where it's a pretty desperate situation, right? You don't have some place that you're staying for free, that buys you that extra month or two or whatever. You need to absolutely have some income coming in before whatever it is, in 2 weeks, in a month, right? A couple things that I would recommend that you explore while you continue to do your like your search for that more permanent job. Consider doing things, there are gig economy jobs, right? And what do I mean by that? So the gig economy, I did actually a webinar on, get, jobs in the gig economy. So you can always go to our, global reentry playlist, and I always leave a link to that, in what I send to you, right? The follow up email that you'll get after this. uh and that you can certainly consider doing, and these might be things like, it may be being an Uber driver if you have a car, right? It may be dog sitting, or some kind of, maybe it's house sitting. That's a really great gig if you can swing that. And a lot of times you have people here in the DC area, a lot people are going like international development. They might have an assignment that's going to take them for 2 months or a month, or sometimes even longer overseas, and they want someone who's able to stay in their house, take care of their pet, in exchange for free rent, right? That's a great solution if you can, tap into, some of those. So be on the, lookout for those kinds of things. Sometimes those are posted on, RPCB jobs, right? The Facebook group, right? If you're not on there, get on there, right? Sometimes it's posted maybe on the COVID group. It's a very supportive community of, RPCBs. You can even, you could even put something out on there and say, hey, I'm really looking to explore if there are any opportunities, where I might be able to, pet sit or whatever, while somebody's abroad. I'm going to be in the DC metro area, and looking for, creative solutions to, my job search process, to extent that's going on a little longer. So things like that, right? It could be, I mean, there's the food delivery things that are huge right now. And I'm not saying these are jobs that you necessarily want long term, right? But if you are in a situation where you are feeling desperate, and you really are, where your window is closing and you have to have something lined up, you need to think a little more outside the box of what you're looking for long term, to find something that can help feed you and house you, right? Pay those immediate bills, to allow you that time you need to get that other position. Okay. So that's the gig economy one. And then also consider temp agencies. Temp agencies are really interesting, because there was a time where people, used to think of temp agencies as only administrative, right? It was just the administrative, like, a secretary, whatever, receptionist. And gone are the days of it being only that, right? Temp agencies work in a variety of capacities. And what's really great about temp agencies is, you are, signing up with one, you're maybe, you're working with them, right? They're looking for you for gigs, right? And they are, considering you for those and helping you in a lot of ways. What's great is they also do things like resume reviews, like, hey, let me look at your resume. You're probably gonna be stronger for this position if you do this, this, this. You have like a personal recruiter, if you will, right? Somebody who's on your side, trying to get you hired for whatever those opportunities are that they're trying to, market you for, right? So that's somebody that can help you get it. The other thing is, they're temporary, so some of them are going to be longer than others. I mean, some may be, 2 weeks, right? Some may be even less, but some may be 2 months. 3 months. Maybe somebody's on maternity leave and they need somebody, who has, I don't know, whatever it is, the skills, in Excel or this or just whatever, right? Project management, things like that, where they just need somebody who is, flexible and resilient. Hello, is that not, RPCVs? So you can get some really interesting jobs that way. And the other thing is, it's a way to get you some experience, maybe in the sector that you're looking to get into, or at least the skill set that is important for that sector that you're really trying to break into, right? So that's another advantage. And a third advantage is it fills that gap on your resume. It puts something more recent than, if you were evacuated, right, 9 months ago. We totally get it. It's been a crappy economy and there's, not been a lot of jobs, right? And so it may have taken you longer and you have that kind of bigger gap. So temping can be a really nice way to fill that while getting your foot in the door. If it's in the kind of organization that you are interested in, the great thing is RPCVs rock and you do a great job and you get in and you wow them with your knowledge and your flexibility and your great, just resourcefulness, right? They want you. So then what happens? They have a position that opens up, in the future or then, and they're like, hey, would you be interested in this? We really loved you when you were working here. You were great. So it could actually lead to a full-time. Um, so I just can't, talk temping up enough. I think it's a great opportunity, and especially if you're in a situation where you really do need to get some, money coming in more quickly, right? So think about that as well. Okay, so we're going to be, talking too about the like what dictates how much time you have, right? What are the conditions that are affecting your timeline, right? And these are just, these are some of them, right? So do you have free rent or very low rent right now while you're looking for a job? If so, great. You might have a little more time that buys you some more time. Not that you want to take longer in the job search, but if it doesn't come through quite as quickly, you may not have to look at some of those other backup types of options if you have, the free rent. Or if you have a savings, maybe you have a savings or a lack thereof, right? Maybe you spent your savings in Peace Corps, right? Doing, fun stuff and travel. But, if you have that savings, it might be able to, stretch you out a little bit longer, right? It dictates how long or short you have. Do you have dependents, others who are depending on your income? That obviously impacts it, right? If you're married, if you have a child, a partner, there, that dictates, as well how much time you have. And then any other financial obligations, right, that are dictating, your timeline. They're all going to affect it, right? But the I guess the bottom line is, as this graphic shows, tick, 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 time is ticking. And so, you do want to make it, as you want to be as quick as possible with, the job search. Okay, great. Um, Sarah had a question here. Sarah, is gap criticism common these days? I would say not as much, or I guess what I would say is employers, everyone understands what's happened, right? With what we're going through with COVID, right? It has impacted so many employers. It has put companies out of business. So there's a lot of people who are unemployed to no fault of their own, right? You folks who were evacuated were, ripped out of your villages and, you had to come back because of the evacuation and you're going through all of this. So I don't think anybody right now is looking at it and saying, "Oh, I can't believe they haven't worked for 9 months," or whatever. No, they're understanding what it is, right? Similar to in the past, when you look at certain crashes, in the stock market and certain kinds of jobs, yes, there were a lot of people unemployed. So I don't think the criticism is as much, but it's still nice to have something more recent. Even if it is, like I said, temp type of work or, volunteering, you can put that on as, job. And we're going to talk about that later. I have a whole slide on that, which can be really a creative way to get some of the job skills that you're looking for and infiltrate into certain companies or sectors and become known in that way. So yeah, so I hope that helps. All right. So let's continue here. So how do you kick your search into high gear, right? There's several different, ways, and we're going to be talking about those. The getting and staying organized is a big one, right? So just organize your system, because if you're unorganized in your job search, chances are that's going to come across in your interview, right? It could come across in your interview or in when they call you for an interview and you haven't saved, maybe you've just linked to the job description that was online only to find out, oh, some job descriptions disappear once the job is on, like is no longer active, right? Once it closes, so people don't realize that, right? So that can, if you have to, when they call you, you don't really want to have to say, do you have the job description? It doesn't make you seem as with it, right? So you just want to be careful about that. The other thing I would say, with staying organized, um, whatever system you want to use is fine. I mean, I advocate either a, Google Sheets or, Excel spreadsheet where you basically dump in, right? You can have one for the jobs you've applied for, right? Or maybe a tab for that, whatever, where a worksheet for that, and where you have the organization you applied for, the job title, the link to the job title, but copy it into your own, so you have it on your drive and it won't disappear, like I was just explaining earlier. So, and then the date you applied, right? The resume that you used, because let's face it, you need to tailor your resume. And if you're doing some of the big mistakes of not tailoring your resume and trying to just mass apply for as much as possible and using the same resume, you're not going to sift to the top because you're not going to have those target words and those key, concepts that are important for that particular job. So you really want to spend time, tailoring it. And I always say to people, anytime you go for a new job, think about, what job have I applied for that is closest in like responsibilities and nature to the job that I'm applying for now. And then start with that one as your resume, and then tweak it from there for that particular job. And let me tell you, it's going to be a lot less stressful and a lot less difficult and a lot less time invested to update that for that one, because you've already got it, many of the aspects of it. I hope that makes sense. That's just one way to save you time. And really, when you talk about speeding up the job search, we're really talking about how are ways you can do things faster. You can save time, so it takes you less time to get your desired applications out, and out there, and easier ways to find them. So that's really what I'm focusing on right here. So that's the organized. However it works for you, just stay organized. And that can help a great deal. Next, set up targeted auto searches, right? So some of the, I mean, put in the chat box if you can think of, what are your favorite online, job search sites that you go to. I mean, there are some of the huge ones, right? I mean, I think the biggest one that rates really well is Indeed, right? Indeed is huge. Idealist. What else? Anyone have one in the chat box here? Just go ahead and add it if you do. Um, there's so many, right? I mean, you think of the older ones like Monster and whatever, but the like Idealist, Indeed, there's Flex Jobs. There's so many. I mean, do a Google search on best job search engines, right, to see what it comes up with. DevX, has some great stuff too for international development, which, by the way, the International Development Career Fair with DevX is today, February 5th, 2021. And that is going on right now as well. And Peace Corps volunteers got free entrance to that. So if you're interested in trying to attend that at all, go onto our events calendar, peacecorpsconnect.org/events, and click on the February 5th date, the event, to get your coupon code. You can get in for free if you're an RPCV. So just a little plug for that. It's not too late still. It goes all day. Uh, so, so the auto searches, like, you're going to want to put in the kinds of jobs that you're looking for, right? You don't want just all jobs, right? You want to tailor it. What are the key words? What are the key industries or sectors that you're looking at, right? They'll allow you to do a lot of tailoring. And then the great thing is they just let you know, here's what we found today. And you can do it every week, every day. If you're in a crunch for time, you probably do it every day and just look at and see what comes up and apply for the jobs that make sense, right? That just helps instead of you going through and trying to, go through them. Now, the other good one that I want to mention for RPCVs is Career Link, which is RPCV Career Link. It's Peace Corps headquarters. It's their job board. I used to work in managing the career center there for 12 years, and that was one of the biggest ones. There's hundreds of jobs there. I mean, about 5 months ago, I think there were about, or 6 months ago, there were maybe 400, almost 500 jobs, but there's usually at least a couple hundred. And from both, there's a lot of NCE jobs, non-competitive eligibility jobs, right, for persons, with NCE, federal, and then there's a lot of other ones, right, nonprofit and all kinds of other ones who know and honor and acknowledge how great RPCVs are, and so they want to plug into them. So you can get to that by going to Peace Corps .gov. Danielle, if you might be able to drop that in the chat box, that would be awesome. Thanks. It's peacecorps.gov/career link. That's a really good one. And then the NPCA, we have our own as well, which we have some good jobs on. Also, it's smaller and it's a very good one as well. And you can access that one through, if you go, I don't have the direct URL on that one, but if you go to peacecorpsconnect.org and you look under the services for return to Peace Corps volunteers, you'll get to our career page, or actually just Google, jobs page, National Peace Corps Association, and you'll get there. And there's some good ones on there too. All right. Help LinkedIn to help you. I know that a lot of people think of LinkedIn as, not a time suck, but it takes so long to get it all done. I don't know how to do it in the right way. What do I need to do? And they feel helpless. So they just don't do it, or they don't update it. And it just, their profile isn't as great as it could be. The really great thing about LinkedIn is if you can get your profile in shape and you can then choose to make it, to share it with recruiters, it's open, public, that people can contact you. You can get a lot of really good, recruiters that are, interested in you, seeking you out. Isn't that a nice change, right? From the others. So you can certainly do that as well. And then, keeping, you want to keep focused. Like I said, you don't want to just start, I know that the tendency would be to to look at it as, okay, I'm just going to throw as many apps up there. If I'm desperate and I need to get a job right away, I'm just going to apply for everything, and just one of them surely will work out. That attitude's not so great, because it just plasters them with the untailored ones that are, you're just not going to get very far usually that way, right? Has it worked for some? Maybe, but it's not as effective, right? So keeping a little more focused, and tailoring your apps versus applying for everything. But there's a fine line, okay? So they're, on the one hand, applying for everything and anything and just not tailoring is on the one side. On the other side is being maybe too focused, where you only want, well, my end goal is to work in international development, and I want to be abroad. And so that's the only positions I want, to take. You may be tailoring yourself too much. Maybe you need to back up a little or broaden your search and consider opportunities that might get you into those companies, maybe stateside, then to be promoted or sent abroad, that kind of thing, and or into another organization where you could develop the skill set that maybe they're really needing and requiring that you don't have as strong of yet. So it might, I look at, where's your end goal, and then see it not as it's just one step to my end goal. It's probably, a couple different ones, right? You might take a job here and get more experience in that, and that's great. And then, move somewhere else and get a little more. So I encourage you to think of it like that as well. Are there any other questions, Danielle, that have come up in the chat room while we've been here? I'm trying to scroll as well.
No, none that I see.
Okay, great. David, you mentioned that you worked for Agilon for a bit after Peace Corps, and they were pretty good. I really like Agilon. They're one of the ones that used to come to our Peace Corps headquarters career center and do like resume workshops and interviewing workshops and things like that to help out. They loved doing it too. They love RPCVs. They're like the best clients, right? They're talented, they're, flexible, all of that. So they absolutely love them. So yeah, that's a great one. Does Peace Corps have any formal mentorship opportunities looking for a mentor in international development? Interesting, you should ask that. First of all, for the Society for International Development is the organization today that's doing the career fair. And as part of that, it's not just organizations, and it's using a really good platform that's like set up for career fair. So it's going to be a smooth process. But they're doing flash mentoring with international development professionals on a first come, first served basis. So I'm not sure what their availability is. But if you go to sidcareerfair.org, and then you register for it, and you put in, there's a coupon code from Peace Corps. Like I said, go to our events page, peacecorpsconnect.org, and then slash events, and then click on that, and you can get the coupon code to get in free. And you have to prepare a little profile that literally you attach your resume, you have your profile picture, whatever, because it's all in that system. It's a lot more integrated. It's a really cool system. I'm going to be getting into it as soon as I get off of this, so to just test it out and see how great it is. So definitely check that. But the other way, Peace Corps did, we did do a connection for mentors. Gosh, really early on. I came on in April, and it was like June. We got people who were interested in being mentors and people who are interested in being mentees and matched them up, right? And I mean, some were, got in touch with each other, and others I don't know that they did necessarily. Mentors are it's easy to find mentors, especially when you're in RPCV and you want ID. I mean, international development, that is like the number one most popular, what people want to work in, right? So if you go onto the RPCV jobs Facebook page or the COVID, support group page, the group, and you put in there, hey, I'm looking to chat with people working in the ID sector, international development sector. I'm looking for a mentor, to just kind of share a little more about their own experience. I can almost guarantee you're going to get a ton of people who will put like someone else's name saying, hey, would you be interested? People will help you out. They definitely will. So I would try that as well. Okay, great. Let's see. Oh, Allie, you took a break from the career fair to come to this. Awesome. So they have a great schedule of mentors in each of the booths. That's fabulous to hear. And did you have to sign up in advance for yours? Did you get some slots in advance? I'm just curious if you could put that in the chat box too. I think that'll help other people out. I'm really glad that it's good. Maybe if anyone knows the SID Career Fair coupon code for RPCVs, drop it in the chat box. That'd be great. Wonderful. Okay, so let's move on. So helping LinkedIn help you really comes down to making it targeted, right? Doing like in your, what is it, your headline, like having it'll default to your most recent title. Okay. So know that, but you don't have to leave it that. You can totally change it or add other ones. So you might have multiple, like maybe things, project manager, if that's one of the things that describes you and your titles in the past, right? Whatever, and trainer, right? Adult educator, whatever, right? Career consultant, career development specialist, those kind of things. I'm just thinking of my own there in the last ones. So, putting that kind of information there is really helpful. And there's some other ways to really make your profile pop. It's different than your resume generally, right? And you can do a really good job with LinkedIn. And I get it; it can take a very long time. You don't have a long time necessarily, but you want to at least have your LinkedIn to a state where it is going to pop, and the better it is, the more it's going to attract those recruiters who are looking at it and such. Okay. I'm not sure if anyone else has made their LinkedIn profile like searchable to the recruiters. If you have, dump into the chat box. How did that go for you? Has it been positive? Have you gotten much response, that kind of thing? So great. Oh, thank you, Sarah, for putting the coupon code and the registration page in. That's very helpful. So helpful. So I appreciate that. And then lastly, really keeping focused. Like I said, tailoring your apps versus applying for everything. We've made that point enough, I think. So how to find a job quickly. Okay, that's what we're talking about here today, right? So assess where you're getting stuck. So what I mean by that is, are you getting any response from your applications that you're putting in? Are you just never hearing back or getting the thanks but no thanks? If that's the case, it's likely a result of something in your resume that you're maybe not doing right, or you're not, for that industry or in whatever. So you might need to kind of pick apart that a little bit and spend a little more time on your resume and redoing, it. So it's really, it's in good shape. Make sure there's not typos, make sure it's, just like really, up to par, right? Um, or are you getting the interviews, which is great. If you're getting the interviews, it already means you're in the like smaller category of the top candidates, but then you're not getting the job after the interview. So that might mean, hey, your resume was okay, you got in, that's good, but you need to focus more on your interviewing. So maybe you need to do a mock interview. Maybe you need to, to kind of practice, right? I do mock interviews with people. I am a one person show. So, and I'm working part time right now due to COVID. So I don't have a lot of time. But what I ask people to do is, if you have a job that's coming up, I don't do them just a make believe mock one. You can find other people to do that. What I do is the one, once you have a job coming up, an interview, and ideally, if we can do it the day or two before that, it's most effective, because you will have everything. I will go through, like, I'll ask you questions, you'll respond, and literally then I'll go through very detailed on what you said, what I liked, what you could improve on, how you could, and really, help with that. In preparation for that or any other interviews, I would also steer you to the interviewing webinar that we have on our, we have all of our, on our global reentry playlist. And Danielle, if you haven't already, maybe you can just dump again the address for our playlist of all of our webinars, and you can search for interview. There's several that are on there on interviewing and how to answer the difficult questions, right? And all those kinds of things. So I think you'll find some value in that as well. It could be that maybe you're just not coming across and you're not taking credit for the amount of, skills or experience you have. And sometimes that amounts to not thinking outside the box. Like, well, do you have experience in XYZ? And maybe you don't have that, but you have something else that's related. But instead of saying that, instead of saying, although my direct experience in that is more limited, I have extensive experience in XYZ as proven, da 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 da, and I'm happy to take a self tutorial, and confident I could come up to speed in no time. Something like that, where you can like make that case instead of nope, right? So that's those are the things, right? And just a couple tips for you. If you have if you've been getting interviews and then you don't get it, know that you were one of, like I said, the top finalists, right? Like, probably they don't usually interview more than 3 people, maybe 5, right? So you were one of the top ones. So if you get that rejection letter, and you will get some, right? Chances are you will get some rejection letters. It's okay, but the important thing is you want to respond to it. Most people are just like, oh crap, and then they're on with the job search and go on to the next one, right? But what you want to do instead is reply and say something like, thank you so much for letting me know regarding your selection decision for the program manager position. While disappointed to have not been chosen, I appreciate, I wish you the very best with your selected candidate. Should any future opportunities arise, please keep me in mind, as I remain extremely dedicated to da 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 da, and am confident my XYZ skill set would be well utilized in blah blah blah. Right? Why do you do that? Number one, to leave a very professional taste in their mouth. Number two, how often does the number one candidate fall through? It happens quite frequently. Maybe they got held up on, they couldn't come to an agreement on salary negotiation. Maybe they found another job and took that instead. Maybe the employer changed their mind when they came across some of their, social media things, right? All of those are reasons why a person might not get the job. And nothing's final until it's final. So if and when that happens, what do you think they're bound to do? You have been so professional. You've come back with, with that, great kind of, email, like thanking them, right? For basically, thank you for the rejection, but you don't say that per se. That's what I call it in jest. It's like, wow, well, they really want this job, and they might keep you in mind for a future one, even like, wow, this, I'm going to contact them and see if they're interested. Now that can't happen in federal government. If it's a posted on USA Jobs, they can't just reach out to you instead, but any others, right? Yeah. So that's a couple things on that. So let's talk about fast tracking to the hiring process. So you want to make the hiring process as quick and painless as possible for you, and just importantly, or maybe even more importantly, for the employer. How can you do that? By thinking ahead and prepping for the point at which they'll ask for references, right? They will ask for references at some point, right? If they haven't yet, get your references in order, right? Get authorization overall from your references just to say, hey, I'm starting to do a job search and, in the blah, blah, blah sector, and I'd love to use you as a reference. I promised that I would always, I would certainly share with you the job description when I release yours, and, and my area of when I worked for you, in the, so they have it right there, what you did and when you did it, which helps them to help you shine. Because if the person is talking to them and doing a reference check and they say, so when did Susan Smith work for you? Well, let's see, it was 2000, 2014, I think. Okay, that's not nearly as impressive as when they call and they have that in front of them, the little list that has it there. And they're like, sure, she worked with me from 2014 to 2016, and she was in the role of da 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 da. Like, they're going to have that all on the top of their head. So it's going to make them look good, but more importantly, it's going to make you look very memorable. So do things like that, right? Anything you can do to prepare for what you're going to need long term, right? Also preparing, for example, sometimes they need maybe your for your salary negotiation or salary, maybe they need like your proof of salary. So maybe it's your W-2 form or your whatever. Like, get those kinds of things all in order so that once you get that offer, there's not a big delay before you can start. You can really minimize that whole offer is, I think, another thing. I want to stop here for just a minute and see if there's any other questions that are coming up, either in the chat box, or if you have any that you're just thinking of now, let me know. You can dump them in the chat box here, or you can even unmute yourself. I'll allow a little break for this. Danielle has kindly put all of our webinars, the link to the playlist on YouTube, in the chat box. So I would recommend definitely that you save that. What you can do is actually save the entire chat by going to the little three dots with the box around it and just put save chat. And that way, any of the chat materials that you want to access, you can do that if people are sharing other resources. Okay. If there aren't any other questions yet, I will continue on here. The last point on this slide is really incorporating mini goals or breaks. And this is really important. I know even if you're feeling desperate and you're feeling like time is of the essence and you just can't afford to take any breaks, you've got to do like job search 24/7 or, 8 hours a day where you're just literally applying for jobs. That's not going to make you very effective. You're going to, it's really tough. It's tough work doing a job search. So incorporating some of those mini goals and breaks. And by that, I don't mean, oh, let's watch season, 3 of whatever the favorite. No, it's mini goals, right? Maybe you take like a 15-minute break and you make your favorite, decaf tea or something and just have a little time, whatever. Over lunch, you definitely take a lunch, you get out, you walk around. I know it's hard with COVID right now. There's just not as much, in-person interaction. And so we feel very kind of isolated in our homes, but getting out and walking around and enjoying the beautiful day. Today's a very nice day out here in Washington. So just enjoying that kind of thing. So those are important. Great. Enlist your network, and this is a huge one, right? Many jobs are found through networking, and this is a graphic that's from the USAA, and I liked it because it really kind of it shows the different kind of areas and of networking, right? And how you might do the things and what might boost your chances of landing a job, right? So the first one that I wanted to talk about mostly was enhancing your social presence, right? So, that's obviously, working on your profile so that you have kind of your brand, if you will, your presence, all of that, right? But also joining groups. So on LinkedIn, for example, there are so many groups, right? And when you join groups, it's going to get you into groups with other like-minded professionals, with thought leaders, right? Subject matter experts. And one of the things that you can do in those, I mean, occasionally, not all the time, don't be a nuisance, but occasionally even posting some article, sharing it with the group, puts your name out there. And if you do that repeatedly over a period of time, right, it really develops you as more of like a thought leader and somebody who, has, knowledge and, of the area. And just it's that name recognition that's helpful as well. So that if in the future you maybe reach out to somebody in your, group, and the great thing is you can connect with people in your group without being connected like on LinkedIn. You're in the same group. So you could do an IM, an instant message, whatever. So reach out and maybe you try to do a career chat. Hey, I really enjoyed seeing your, what you've shared in the XYZ group. And, it's such a great, great group network to be a part of. I'm wondering if, you might have 15, 20 minutes of your time at your convenience to chat a little bit. I'd love to hear more about your own experience as a, blah, blah, blah leader in the whatever, area. I'm currently exploring opportunities, and not even, I wouldn't say I'm looking for a job and I need, even when you're like definitely looking for a job and all that, I would make it a little softer, like, I'm exploring opportunities in that area and I would love to get any insight you might have. And that might get you an actual career chat. I don't like the term informational interview, which I know used to be more of the term. It still is maybe, but it just sounds so long. When I get contacted for an informational interview, my instant thought is, oh, I'd love to, but I don't have an hour, right? A career chat can be 15, 20 minutes. And you want to honor that, whatever it is, right? So getting people on your side too, right? Identifying people and they meet you and they're impressed by you. And that's great too. And, when you do those career chats, again, we have a webinar on like, how to get career chats and how to conduct them. One of the things that I always ask people to do is when you're ending that, ask them, what, if any, now that you've had a chance to review my resume, or I'm sorry, um what if any contacts would, or what organizations, if you were in my position, I usually preface it with, if you were in my position exploring opportunities in the international development sector, who are the 2 or 3 people or organizations you would definitely connect with? That's going to ideally get them to share some of their contacts, or their knowledge of the industry. Generally, I will tell you, they will come out more with organizations. Sometimes people too, but that's fine. You're just writing down what they say. You're just boom, 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 like writing it all down. Once they stop, you say, wow, this is a really great list. I will definitely follow up on this. I'm wondering, do you by chance have any contacts in any of these organizations who might be as gracious as you've been to spend 15, 20 minutes of their time chatting about their experience? That's a very professional way to ask for contacts. And people, if it hasn't been a difficult situation, it hasn't been stressful for them, they've enjoyed it, they're probably going to be like, sure, either send me your resume and I'll forward it on to, or Jane Doe, she's great, and da 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 da. Give me your resume, and or reach out to her and tell her that, I sent you whatever they say, just go with that. But those are the ways, because honestly, the biggest probability of getting a job source, your source for jobs, the biggest one is networking, knowing someone, whether it's an employee referral, whether it's somebody who connects you with an opportunity or a person. That's, I mean, up to, I hear different stats, but I hear up to 70 to 80%. Like that is huge. Um, and even if it's 50%, that's still huge, right? So you definitely don't want to miss out on that aspect. That's how a lot of times jobs are coming to be, right? Be specific with your, requests. Yep, when you're asking, sometimes people are like, they'll ask for the career chat, and then they come to the career chat, it's like, so what do you do? What do you, and they're like, it just exudes like meekness and not at all preparation. You want to instead come in and say, thank you so much for visiting with me. I really appreciate you taking the time. And I'm so glad that we're thankful that we're connected through the whatever group. Like kind of reconnect that. Or maybe it was, I'm so thankful to Bob for, Bob and Sean for connecting us, and whatever it is, right? It's that helps them to know where you came from. Because a lot of times they'll just have in their little notebook or their on their calendar, it'll say Joe Smith and nothing else. And they're like, who is this person? I don't even know. I don't remember. So, but being specific with your requests as well, right? Just, insight on, the job. What do you like most about working in the industry? What's the biggest challenge in your mind? Those kind of things are going to be really helpful for you, right? What are the best entry points to get into this organization, or that kind of thing? So that'll be very helpful for you. And then lastly, employee bonuses. I want to talk about referrals. Oftentimes employers pay employee bonuses for employees who refer somebody on. If that person gets hired, that employee gets a pretty nice, bonus. And it could be, hundreds of dollars, it could be thousands. I mean, it depends, but it's a nice bonus. And I mean, that's a nice factor, right? Who doesn't want that kind of thing? Well, great. I'll refer them. If that's the case, people are oftentimes eager to, refer, especially good candidates like you. Okay, questions on this, networking. Let's see, I'm going to read. There's a couple questions in the queue. Put your networking questions right here while excuse me, while I try to scroll up here. Let's see. I have a relevant professional experience section, Sarah asks, on the first page, and a second section called other professional experience. And have my latest gig to show there isn't a huge gap. So you have your relevant on page one, and then your other professional experience. So is your latest gig is on the front page, with the, or it's on the second page? I guess I'm just curious as to where it is. That's one way to do it. Definitely, your relevant experience in the other, right? Second page, yeah. It's, yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you have it relevant experience, that by nature shows, okay, the relevant first, and then other professional experience. That's great. Yeah, I think that's fine. Absolutely. All right. And then let's see, if the gig that you're doing does not have anything to do with your career goal, is it still appropriate to add it to your resume? Yeah. Allie, that's a good question. And you will likely get different answers from different professionals, right? We all have our own maybe takes on it. I think in my mind, I think it shows your resourcefulness, your adaptability, right? Those kinds of things in this terrible economy, to be able to just step into and do those kinds of things. I don't think it's going to typecast you as, oh, well, they're driving Uber, they're, whatever, they're not going to, want to do this. That's very different, right? And I think it also comes down to what are the kinds, how do you describe it? You don't need to put a lot of information right down. But if you were an Uber driver, right, that, I mean, hello, utilize cross-cultural skills or interpersonal skills to, connect, positively with diverse clientele, demonstrated, I don't know, attention to detail, or so, I don't know, or whatever, in and whatever you did, like, with that. So you can put a little bit more about the skills that you were using in there that are transferable, and less about, the actual, maybe, parts of the job, drove to places, right? That maybe isn't as applicable, right? I always give to the example. I mean, I know I had, you know, I was in grad school. Worked my way through grad school. I was waiting tables, right, and in a fancy Italian restaurant, right. So I wanted to put that because I felt like it was important to show that, hey, while I was, going to grad school full time, I was also working a good number of hours and maintaining this, whatever. And so how did I put it on there? I certainly didn't say like took orders and brought food. That's not the important part, right? I had, gosh, can I even remember how I had it worded right now? Um, let's see, it was, provided quality customer service to diverse patrons in upscale Italian restaurant. Something like that, right? Like that was about that's a transferable skill, right? And then I had a bullet about one of the roles that I was tapped for was training the new wait staff as they came in. So selected to train all incoming staff on proper procedures and protocol. Did I put on there folded fancy fan shaped napkins, a crate of 100 every night? No, I did it every night, but that wasn't important, right? I just had those two bullets. That's it. And that was able to, say, hey, they chose her to train. Okay, so she must have done a good job, or, that kind of stuff. That's all you need. You don't need a lot on those, maybe gig economy kinds of, types of jobs that you're doing in the meantime, or, so hope that helps. Let's see, there's a couple other questions that are coming in. Great, keep them coming. Thank you. I'm a virtual personal trainer, so I might be able to add the planning, implementation, and evaluating training. Great, absolutely. Allie, that's spot on. So you also could have, say you're going for a job where it's like program development or something, right? So you could have, organized or developed, implemented, and evaluated personal training programs for diverse clients, or whatever, like, whatever you're right. To increase fitness or whatever you could say instead of the for diverse clients, maybe, or something, you know what I mean? So that just shows some of what you did, right? And demonstrated what flexibility in adapting business, to, online versus in person due to COVID, right? That's something that's good. So, I mean, it's just that's what it's all about. Okay. So, let's see here. Yes, you're welcome. And let's see if there are any. I think there was one more question above this. David, do you know about any programs to shadow people at federal agencies to learn more about the job and to network? Okay. There is an organization called GovLoop, GovLoop. Look them up. They are basically kind of the networking and training type of organization, if you will, that's aligned with the federal government. They've got a lot of really good resources on there, but I can almost guarantee you, if nothing else, if you join GovLoop and you're in their group, like, you're on their listserv, you could certainly say, hey, I'm really interested in whatever agency and I'm looking to potentially shadow, somebody. You would probably be able to be hooked up with someone. But again, I would also do that on the RPCV, the Facebook groups, like the COVID one and the RPCV jobs one, and whatever other ones you're in, to say, hey, does anyone know anyone working for XYZ federal agency? I'm really interested in right now. Obviously, it's going to be a virtual, more or less, in COVID, but post COVID times, yes, doing, kind of a, shadow and career chat and things like that. Absolutely. That's how it happens. You ask your network, right? You put it out there. So great. Okay. Danielle, let me know if I've missed anything. If you have any other questions here, I'm going to go ahead to the next slide because I want to talk really briefly before we finish in a few minutes here on volunteering your way to a job. And I know this seems out of place for if you're really needing to get a job quickly, right? But it can work in that regard, and it helps you in so many ways. If you go to volunteermatch.org, this is for the entire states, right? And you can put in your key, like, passion areas, HIV/AIDS educator, or child, nutrition, or whatever it is, right? Um, and you put that in, and then where you live, and it will spit out a list of organizations that are close to where you live or where you're looking to live, right? You put in whatever, and you can reach out to them and see about possible volunteer opportunities. But also, guess what? You can use it as your job search. You can also say, wow, I didn't know there was an organization working in fill in the blank here in the, whatever metro area. I want to look at that for a job. Like, so you can totally use it for your job search as well. But it's really good as well for getting your foot in the door. You can say, hey, I am a return Peace Corps volunteer. My service was cut short and I'm back and I'm doing my job, and my job search, and in the meantime I'm really looking to give back. I miss what I was doing, and I really want to give back, and I'm wondering if you have any opportunities in da, 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 or whatever. You reach out. People are almost always very thankful for volunteers, right? Now, I'm not saying that you should be volunteering for 40 hours a week, because that's not going to give you the time to do what you need to for your job search necessarily. But to volunteer whatever you can, period. It also gives you an into the organization, right? You see it from the inside. Now, maybe you volunteer there and you're like, I would not want to be there. I don't like the culture. It's not for me. Great. You learned that before you maybe took a job. But it also can make you a more known entity. And then it helps you, like, say they have a job that opens up while you're there, or even afterwards, and they're like, hey, let's contact, and see if they'd be great. You'll be in touch with them, right? You're going to be still in touch, and they might have an opportunity and just reach out to you and not even post it. They don't have to, right? They might have the perfect fit for you. So think about that as well. That can definitely come through. It also makes the waiting a little less painful. I don't know about you, but it's tough. It's tough to be doing a job search and not have anything, and then be where you just you're isolated, right? Especially right now, right? So doing anything, trying to volunteer, doing some volunteer work, it feeds the soul. At least I know for me it does, and probably for you because you're an RPCV also, right? And you are all about service. So it can really help you maintain that more positive mentality too, because being positive is really important as well. When even when you feel desperate, you don't want to come across as desperate or negative. That's not going to help you. So thank you folks for jumping off. I know and they need to take other calls. I will continue on. Yes. Are there other volunteer positions in federal agencies? You know, that's a good question. Not as much that I know of, because they have such screening. They do internships, and so it's more like maybe it's an externship or an internship or things like that. I'm speaking from the few agencies that I've more worked with. There may or may not be. You might, I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask, are there any volunteer opportunities to give back? I'm a Peace Corps volunteer, and I'm looking to, I'm doing a job search, but in the process I would love to. The thing with federal is you have to be cleared, and that can take a while, and so it kind of might defeat the purpose. You might have your job lined up already. I don't know, but good thinking. So great, awesome. All right. So everyone, I just want to I have a graphic here that's from Balance Career. Balance Career is one of my favorite resources, along with the Muse. This is just some tips on getting hired fast. I like the graphic because we talked about most of these things, right? But a couple of the key points, I think: don't stop applying. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. That's easy to do. It's like, oh, this is the perfect position. Oh my gosh, this is the only one I want. No, you want to still apply for other ones, because you don't know if that's going to come through. If it comes through, great. If it doesn't, you're not at a loss for, and starting from ground zero. The other one that I wanted to point out here is, sending the thank you note is really helpful, and it does mean a lot to folks. If you've had a career chat, right now with COVID, it's more, online, virtual, whatever, but eventually, like, doing even a handwritten one is nice. So David has a question. Not sure if you covered this and I missed it because I had to jump off for a few minutes, but are there resources on using the third reason for NCE extension? Yeah. Um, so the NCE, you can certainly make your case to whatever employers you're wanting to work for, but it's ultimately them who are making that ground for the case. You can certainly say, I'm wondering what, if any, options do you consider, or what situations qualify for extension for the third reason. I assume you're talking about the more kind of nebulous, the one that's the other reasons that make you more competitive, other activity that make you more competitive in the eyes of the agency, right? The hiring agency, that third one, because the first two are pretty, they're pretty standard, right? The go back to grad school full time or go to military full time. It's that third one that's odd. You can certainly make a case for it. But the hiring manager is going to be the one. I mean, the agency is the one that's really going to decide whether or not. It's totally up to them. It's not a mandate that they consider it. They have that option. Now, there is an effort to get NCE extended, and I do want to tell you that. And I think the effort is to just get the flat 3 years from the start, which would be so nice. It would be just like the staff one, which would be great, because you wouldn't have this whole, extension and needing to extend it. It ends up taking the agency a lot more time, the RPCD a lot more time, but that takes to change. That's an executive order, NCE is, right? And so for that aspect of changing that, the NCE, the extension period, or just changing it to the 3 years, or even just, in any other ways that are more serious, that would take a literal act of Congress. So it's not something that's really fast, as you can imagine. And I don't know if they would then retroactively give it to people who were, affected by COVID. Hopefully, if they're, making that change, they would, if you're in that group, I hope, but or others, I don't know. They might make it retroactive. I just don't know. There's not enough out on that. Yeah, but there's no there's no harm in making a case, and especially if you've been doing some kind of activity, that is, makes you somehow more qualified, definitely focus on that and try it. And if you have other questions on that, you can give me a call too and reach out to me directly at jody@rpcv.org is fine. Danielle, any other questions that came in? I think we got them
Yeah,
all.
there's one more. It's how
Okay.
many jobs did you apply to per day, week, etc.? What is a realistic goal or amount?
Yeah. You know what? And that's so funny because that is such a common question. People want to know if they're doing it right or doing it wrong, right? I'm sorry that I'm not going to be able to give you a set amount of what's realistic. It depends on your sector, how much you're having to refine and change those jobs. If you're going for jobs that are all in the same sector and they all are almost the same position, you should be able to get several out, right, a day, without problem. But generally, you have to really tailor them. So that's going to take you some time. So I don't think it's realistic to expect I'm going to submit 10 resumes a day. That's not realistic, right? I don't think you're going to be putting out your best work. I would scale that quite a bit back, right? So yeah, but it's going to depend, on what you're applying for, all of that. And granted, like if you're applying for USA Jobs one on USA Jobs, like the standard competitive process, it's going to take you a lot longer. Like that might be you get, one or two done in a day, right? I mean, because it can take a lot longer to do the parts. Okay. Somebody else asked, let's see, Sarah, what is determined as, yeah, fast hire, right? Fast is a relative term. I, would put that in quotations, right? It depends on, again, it depends on the agency. Like a fast hire for federal, for a federal, like, even like with NCE, even a fast hire for federal would be having you come on board within 2 months is very fast. I'm not saying it's not possible still. I know that people are making it work and trying to, do their best and all of that, but that's like a pressed timeline. It usually takes longer than that. And I know people don't like to hear that. For other jobs, obviously it can be much quicker, right? You might, interview the job and they're like, we want you and give us your this, and let's call. We've done your references. They might have you on board within, a couple weeks. It so depends. There's no one, what's fast and what's fast for an industry versus others. So obviously it slows down a lot if there's clearance. For some federal jobs or other jobs, you might have to do security clearance. That can definitely slow it down by months, easily. Yeah, but some organizations will, if it's an NCE hire, for example, and the candidate gets a tentative offer, as long as they have the tentative offer before their NCE expires, they're able to be brought on, because that final offer is going to be months out, maybe with the security and all that. So yeah, I hope that helps at least a little bit. What would be considered, yeah, okay, so I think I just answered that with the federal government more. Yeah, I mean, a fast one, even with NCE. With regular jobs, federal, where you're competing for the regular, I mean, it's very common that it's months. Yeah, by the time you get like completely onboarded, because once they determine they want you, then it depends. Have you worked in federal government before? If so, they have to do all this like paperwork, whatever stuff, to make that process come together and all of that too. Other times it might be quicker. So, and remember to report your Peace Corps service if you do work in federal government, because that will count for different kind of retirement purposes and stuff. You'll have your years in service. It'll automatically, yeah, it'll count for your years in service and everything. There's just a process they do in HR. So, and you make what's called a service credit payment. Okay, is there any other question in the queue? And if not, I'm going to go ahead and end this to respect everyone's time. I don't see any others. Danielle, are you?
No, all the questions are answered.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead. I'll stay on for a few minutes after, but I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us today. And good luck in your job search.